Everyone, this is Stephanie. Welcome to another video. So today we're going to work on the Reflections earrings. And these earrings go with the Reflections pendant that we made, I think, in our last tutorial. Now you don't have to wear these together, but they do go if you would like to. So here are the earrings. And these earrings are using some of the items from Eureka Crystal Beads Enchanted Mirror Collection. But you don't have to have the collection. They have everything listed individually as well, so you can just purchase what you need for the collection. You can look in your stash. I've added some beads from my stash with this, but this is the earring, and I think it came out so pretty. I absolutely love them. I've been wearing them for the past few days. All right, so let's clear this off. We'll get a materials list going, and we'll get 18mm gorgeous teardrop Krakowski fancy stone. Isn't that beautiful? I don't have a loose one, but they're so sparkly. Isn't that pretty? All right, so we have those. And then you'll need some Toho treasures. And I have a antique bronze, and then I think this is called matte, what is this, matte mauve. I'll put the names in the description box below the video. I have a 15-0 in metallic bronze, light metallic bronze. I've got an 11-0 in light metallic bronze. I've got this, I love this bead, this 15-0 in matte silver. These gorgeous little pearls, they're the 3mm pearls. They come as a mix in the collection if you have them. So I just pulled out the 3s, but I'll list them, as I said, below. And here, let me move these guys out of the way for a second. You'll need I'm using a post here, and I put a jump ring at the end of it. I think that's a 3mm jump ring. Again, in the description box to be sure. You can use any ear wire you like, but I use the post. I've got a little stop bead here. I've got an earring back, post back. And then I'm using 6-pound fire line. I use a thermally fused tuff. I get this on Amazon. So this is fine for this. And for the whole thing, I used a size 11 pony beading needle. Did I say stop bead? I always forget that. So, and a stop bead. All right. So again, everything in the description box, anything I missed, any coupon codes I have, any sales, any info that you might need. So don't forget to look in that description box. All right, let's get started. Let's get started. So thread your needle with about 4 feet of thread, put on a stop bead about in the middle. I picked up and dropped down to my stop bead 38 of my Toho treasures. Now you can be using delicas here as well. They're just cylinder beads. So if I call them delicas because I'm so used to using the delicas, I'm using the Toho treasures here. The same, pretty much the same thing. All right, so here are my 38 of my cylinder beads. I'm going to sew these into a circle. I'll move that guy out of the way by sewing through the first bead after my stop bead. Right here. So this is what I have. Okay, we're going to do sort of a standard peyote bezel right now. So I'm exiting this delica. I'm going to pick up a delica or cylinder bead. I'm going to skip one and sew through the following one. And that's going to sit that bead right on top. You might have to encourage it to pop over just like that. Come on, you. There we go. So that's what it looks like. I'm going to add another cylinder bead. So I'm exiting here. I'm going to skip the next one and sew through the following one. Because I'm alternating my colors here, I know that every time I pick up, every time I'm exiting a shiny bead, I'm going to pick up the matte bead and sew through the next shiny bead. So that's just makes it easier going around, so you don't have to think about skipping one and such. But if you're just using on one color, exiting a bead, skipping a bead, picking up a bead, and sewing through the following bead. So we're just going to do that all the way around. Coming down to the end, and I'm going to step up now. So I'm exiting right here. I'm going to skip this one, picking up my cylinder bead. I'm going to sew through the next one and then the one on the diagonal. See that? That's going to step me up so I can put some more beads on. Okay, let's add another round. So this is the easy part. I'm going to pick up a bead. So we're exiting right here. I'm going to pick up my next cylinder bead. I'm going to just sew through the next sticking out bead. So you're just putting a bead in between all the beads that are sticking out, or some people call them up beads, or you know, whatever you want, but it's just the sticking out bead. So all the way around, we're just going to add our cylinder beads. So I'll let you do that and then come back and we'll step up. So as I go around, I'm just sort of putting my thumb right there, you know, around the edge and just giving it just like a little pull inward, just inward a little bit, but not a lot. You do not have to like pull it super tight. That you don't want to do that. So just keep doing that and then we'll step up. So I just put it on my finger so you can easily see the step up because, you know, it's starting to curve, and if I hold it the other way, you can't see it as well. So you just exit, you're exiting a delica. We're going to pick one up or a cylinder bead. And I'm going to sew through the next sticking out delica, which is going to be this one and then the one on the diagonal. And I'll hold this, for those of you, you know, who haven't done this that much, I'll hold it right there so you can see where we're putting the beads. So see that? Exiting here, sewing through this one, and then the one on the diagonal. See what happens when I put that on. Now I have my round finished and I can put some more beads on. Okay, let's add some 15-ohs. So I'm going to pick up a 15-oh. Exiting here, I'm going to sew through the next sticking out bead, up bead, put that 15-oh on. Do another one. For the next sticking out bead, and you're pulling in a little bit. You know, as I said, you don't have to do this tight, just like to make it sort of curve a little bit. So let's go ahead and put on, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 15-ohs. And then we're going to do a little decrease so we can fit that point of our stone in the bezel. So I have on, 5 or 6 of my 15-ohs. And now what I'm going to do here, instead of putting a 15-oh here and sewing through here, I'm just going to sew through the next cylinder bead. So from this one to this one, without any beads on my needle. And just that little decrease right there by not adding that 15-oh, you'll see as we go, as we go around, this little space here is going to be for the point of our stone. So we're just going to continue adding 15-ohs now. So you did that one little decrease right there. And so you're going to add your 15-ohs all the way around, and then we'll step up. 15-oh on, we're exiting here. We're going to pick up a 15-oh, and we're going to sew through the next sticking out bead, which would be this one, and then the 15-oh on the diagonal. So just like that. Okay, let's add another round of 15-oh. So I'm going to switch my color to the matte silver so it's easier to see, and I think it kind of looks pretty. This is going to be the back here, so we're just going to start adding these 15-ohs. Like so. So when we get up to the point where, where we skipped, we're just going to put a 15-oh in that space. So let me pull in a little bit. Okay, so from this 15-oh to this one, we're just going to put one in there. Like that. And then you're just going to continue adding 15-ohs all the way around. Let's step up. So last 15-oh, exiting this 15-oh here. I'm going to sew through the next sticking out 15-oh, which would be this one, and then the 15-oh on the diagonal. And this is what we have so far. This is what we have so far. So I'm just going to flip this around. I'm going to leave the needle and thread on there, so in case I need to tighten up something. And I'm going to flip to the other side, and I am going to take off my stop bead, or I did, and I threaded my needle. So you're going to look and see where your thread is coming out. So my thread is exiting this delica right here. So I just want to get to the outside so I can add some beads on. So I'm just going to sew on the diagonal just through this one. So I'm exiting right there, and now I can add some beads on. Okay, this is what we have so far. So I'm going to pop my stone in, and just for reference, you want to make sure the point is sort of corresponding with your decrease, which is right there. And because this is going to be the front, you'll also want to sort of situate it so that you have this delica, see this dark one, is sort of at the point. Don't worry about it if it's not perfect. We can always like move it a little bit before we finish the bezel. But you just try to get it so it's, you know, the point is right here, and on the back, your decrease, the point, you know, the decrease is right at the top there. So that you should be able to do that. You might have to play with it a little bit, but I think it should kind of slide in there. All right, so this is what we have so far. Okay, so I've positioned my stone, and my thread is coming out. So you know we moved the thread to the outside beads. I'm just going to add some 15-ohs here. So I'm going to pick up a 15-oh, and I'm going to sew through the next sticking out bead, which is this delica. So we're just going to do that all the way around. And I'll meet you sort of at the point, just to get you through the point. It's we're not really doing anything different, but I'll go through the point with you anyway. So I'm approaching the point, and I'm just going to just keep adding 15-ohs. So here, through this, whoops, kind of flew off my needle, through this one. So really nothing different. This one. So you see we're not skipping anything, we're just continuing all the way around. Okay, so I'll just let you do that, and then we'll step up. Okay, we're getting close to stepping up. So we're just adding 15-ohs, and then here we're at the point where we're going to step up. So picking up my 15-oh, exiting this delica right here. I'm going to sew through the next sticking out bead, which is the delica, and then the 15-oh on the diagonal. And that's going to add that round on. Looking good. Okay, everything's looking great. So now we're going to add in some more 15-oh. So I'm going to switch to the matte silver 15-oh because I want to show, I want the picot to show like so. So we're going to pick up the matte silver, and I'm exiting this 15-oh. I'm just going to sew through every sticking out 15-oh until we get to the top, and we'll do the top together. It's not going to change that much, but we'll do that together. So just keep putting your 15-ohs on, and sort of meet me around the point. Okay, so as I get to the point, I'm going to sew through this one. So you see where we're at the part here where we have this delica right here, and then these two 15-ohs. I'm just going to advance my needle from this 15-oh through the delica and through this 15-oh. So I'm skipping the point there, and then I'm going to add 15-ohs until I finish the round. So you see how that's going to look? You're going to have sort of that look right there. So then just keep adding your 15-ohs and we'll step up. Time to step up. Picking up my last 15-oh. Exiting right here, I'm going to sew through this 15-oh and then the 15-oh on the diagonal. Just like so. There we go. Got a little pull. And this is what we have so far. This is what we have so far. So now you can take this opportunity to make sure everything on the front is straight. I still have my tail thread on. You can sew, or the back thread on. You can sew that in if you like, or you can leave it if you want to do more decoration on the back. But here, so we have all our beads on. I'm exiting this 15-oh here. So when you look at it, you want to make sure because I'm such a stickler for like where everything is placed. You want to make sure that this delicate is sort of in line here, then you have these two 15-0s, and these two 15-0s are just sort of evenly spaced over there. So you're going to, because you're going to put a bead here, so you want these two to sort of look like they're just about even right there. See what I mean? Just to, you know, so that when we put our picot on, we'll have a bead here and it will make a nice little picot here. So, you know, just kind of straighten those out a little bit the best you can. And we'll start adding some more beads and we'll sort of form that little picot. Okay, I'm exiting the 15-0 that I put on the matte silver. I'm going to pick up a matte silver and we're going to make the picot. So we're exiting right here. I'm just going to sew back through this one and then the one I'm exiting. And just kind of push it down, give it a little bit of a pull, not super tight. You know, you just want everything to lay nicely. So there. And then I'm going to move over to my next group. So I have to sew through, well, I'll do one at a time. So we'll sew through this one, through this one, through this 15-0, and then through this one. So you always want to be moving your thread so that you can connect these the two 15-0s together. So here we're exiting here now. Going to pick up our 15-0. I'm going to sew through this one and then back through the original one that we're exiting. Pop it over, give it a little tug, put it into place like so. Then we're going to move to the next group. So sew through this 15-0, this one, this one. So I'm just doing everything on the diagonal so no thread is showing. And then this one, like that. And then we're going to add our 15-0. So back through, so through this one and then back through the original, the one we're exiting. Give that a little placement. You can kind of put them into place just like that. So we're going to do that all the way around. Just stop. We'll do the point together because that's going to be, it's going to be the same, but it, you know, we want to make sure we get it nice and even. Okay, so I'm going to put on the picot before the point. So I'm exiting right here. Just going to sew through this one and the one I'm exiting, just like we've been doing. So like that. And then I'm going to advance through this 15-0, this 15-0, and now, because I don't want to thread here, I'm going to work my way through this 15-0 and the delica, this 15-0, and then this 15-0. So I've just worked my way around so I wouldn't, you know, I didn't have a thread crossing. And now we're going to add the picot. I'm going to pick up my 15-0 and I'm going to sew through this one to make my picot. And I'm going to continue around through these beads again. Again, I don't want a little threads showing there. So I'm going to sew through the 15-0 and the delica. And this 15-0 and this one, and you just can kind of push that into place like so. And then I'm going to advance through this one, through this one, a lot of advancing, and through the this one, this 15-0, and then the one on the diagonal, and we're going to put our next picot on. Straighten that out. Everything will straighten out. Once we put the bicones on, everything straightens out beautifully. So here, let's do our next picot. Pop that in. So this is what it looks like so far. Straighten that out. I'm on my last picot. So 15-0. Exiting here, just going to go back through this one and this one. That's my last picot. And now, I think that's just pretty the way it is. We're just going to sew through this 15-0. We're going to move our way. We want to get up to the top. So I'm going to sew through this one. I'm going to sew through this one. and then this one. A lot of moving around, and then back through this top point bead of the picot so we can start adding our bicones. Let's add the bicones. So we're exiting the top bead of a picot. I'm just going to sew through the top bead of the next picot. So this is a really easy round. So our 3mm bicones are going right in. When we get to the top, we're going to put one here, and then one here, just like, you know, just like usual. And you see how that gives a nice, like the sequence is nice. It looks like it flows together. Here, here, a couple more, one here. And let's put our last one on. Gosh, I love these colors. I think they're so pretty. Sew through the picot. And then you want to just sew through all the beads you just put on. So the bicones and the little, you know, top, you know, the top bead of the picot. So just go all the way around just to reinforce. Give that a little pull. And this is what our bezel looks like so far. Okay, so we're going to attach the earring to this post, and then we'll do a little embellishment around the whole earring. So here, I've just taken my post earring, and I added a jump ring because I want my beads to go in, you know, this direction. So just add a little jump ring on like that. Okay, so I've tied in all my threads, and now I'm going to add this, the post. So I've added a thread, and I've sewn through this bead right here up at the top of the point. So we're going to work over this bead and through this bead. So the shiny ones on mine right here and here. So I've come through this bead. There's my thread. I'm going to add a 3mm pearl. The ear wire, the post with through the jump ring, and then another 3mm, and I'm going to sew through that same cylinder bead on the other side. So it's just, you know, just going down one there. And I'm just going to make sure that when I pull this, that the ring from that we put on the post is going to sit right in between those pearls. And you know, you want to straighten it out a little bit, so you might have to kind of maneuver it a little bit to get it to fit straight. There we go. Okay, so we're on. So this is what it looks like from the front. And you know, you want to make sure that ring stays there, because that's, you don't want the ring on thread, you want it in between the beads. So I'm exiting that delica right there. I'm just going to just go right across and sew through, you know, reversing direction, sew through this one right there. I'm going to sew through this one that's under the pearls, and then I'm going to sew through this one over here. I'm just working my way around to the other side so I can reinforce like that, and then back up through this one. That's the, you know, one of the attachment ends. And then I'm going to go through the beads again. So I'm going to come through these again. There. The ring. And the pearl on the other side. Like that. Down through that delica that's underneath. So we just went around through the same beads, you know, just worked our way around so we could go, you know, tighten that up. And I think that's looking really good. If you want to do it one more time, you could do it one more time if you're worried about it not being tight enough. But then we're going to move on with this thread, and we're going to add some 11/0s around. So make sure it's nice and secure, you know, and you're happy with your post. And then come back and we'll add a round of 11/0s. Secured everything. I'm happy with the way it's feeling. And now we're going to we're exiting, you know, that delica underneath, you know, that's one of our attachment sides. I'm exiting here. I'm just going to pick up an 11/0, and I'm going to sew through the next cylinder bead in line. So, you know, kind of the stitch in the ditch, right? And when you pull that, it even pulls your ear wire a little tighter. That's why I used I didn't cut off the thread. I thought it would be really good to incorporate that ear wire all the way around, so it's you know, it's really tight. It's really attached to the whole earring. So I'm just going to keep putting the little stitch in the ditch beads on right here. So I'm going to let you go off and do that. Do that all the way around. Don't forget the last one. It's going to go here. And then sew this thread in and come back and we'll finish. We're back and we're done, and I love how they came out. I just had sort of this nostalgic feeling when I was making them, because I used to use the bronze beads all the time and a lot of the cyan colors, and I don't know, kind of just made me happy to be using these colors again. Although I think it'd be gorgeous in any color. I just love sort of the vintage look of these. All right, so I want to thank you so much for being here. I hope you make them, post them on Facebook. Take care, and I'll see you next time.